So in this video, we are going to talk about Sigmund Freud's concept of the human mind using the iceberg metaphor. Wait, tagay na lang kaya? A common metaphor used to explain Freud's concept of the human mind is the iceberg metaphor. And yes, we're going to do the same in this video. But before that, here's a bonus question for you to think about. Did Sigmund Freud really use the iceberg metaphor to explain his concept of the human mind? Should we attribute the iceberg metaphor to him? A. Yes. B. No. Comment down below what you think and we'll dive into this later. So how did Freud view the human mind? In the iceberg metaphor, Freud's idea of the human mind is compared to the features of an iceberg. Let's look at an iceberg. It has three major parts. The first is the part above the water. The second is the part slightly below the surface. And the third is the part way below the surface, which is the largest and the deepest portion. Just like an iceberg, Freud divided the human mind into three levels: the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. So, what's the difference between these levels? Let's start with the conscious mind, the one comparable to the tip of the iceberg. The conscious mind consists of all the mental processes we are aware of at the moment. In other words, it holds your current thoughts and perceptions. Whatever you are paying attention to right now is part of your conscious mind. So, what are you thinking about right now? Your jowa, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? Oh wait, you don't have one, do you? Maybe you're thinking about this video or the temperature around you. Anything you are currently aware of belongs to your conscious mind. Now onto the preconscious, the one comparable to the slightly submerged part of the iceberg. The preconscious contains thoughts and feelings that we are not currently aware of, but can easily be brought into consciousness. For instance, you might not be thinking about your first boyfriend or girlfriend right now, but now that I mention it, maybe you are. That is, if you ever had one. Don't say bad words. As another example, you might not be thinking about your grade in math right now, but hearing this probably made you recall it and maybe cringe a little. The preconscious then is like a waiting room for thoughts, feelings, and memories that we can retrieve when we pay attention to them. Finally, we come to the unconscious, which corresponds to the largest and deepest portion of the iceberg. The unconscious houses repressed thoughts, feelings, and impulses. According to Freud, repression is a defense mechanism we use to protect ourselves from discomfort. For example, traumatic experiences and the negative memories associated with them are stored in the unconscious. We deliberately repress these memories to shield ourselves from anxiety and pain. The unconscious also contains shameful experiences, fears, immoral desires, violent motives, forgotten memories, and even automatic thoughts. Unlike the conscious and preconscious, the unconscious isn't directly accessible. However, Freud believed much of our behavior is influenced by this hidden part of the mind. Freud suggested that dreams are one way the unconscious communicates with us. He discussed this in his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, in 1900. In summary, the unconscious mind, like the deepest part of the iceberg, is the main driver of much of our behavior, even though we're not directly aware of it. So those are the three levels of the mind according to Freud. Now back to our question. Did Sigmund Freud really use the iceberg metaphor to explain his concept of the human mind? Should we attribute the iceberg metaphor to him? A. Yes. B. No. The iceberg metaphor is widely attributed to Freud, but if we examine Freud's published works, the answer is no. Freud never explicitly mentioned the iceberg in any of his writings. Freud's original model was, well, very dry, no water, no iceberg. Now this raises three questions. First, to whom should we attribute the iceberg metaphor. Second, who first used the iceberg metaphor in the context of Freud's conception of the human mind? Third, who first attributed the iceberg metaphor directly to Freud? Now, I'm not going to give definite answers to these questions, but to give you a starting point should you decide to further investigate, I'll give you some names to start with. For the first question, some sources credit Gustav Theodor Fischner, while others suggest Granville Stanley Hall. For the second question, James Bissett Pratt and Henry Nelson Wieman were among the earliest to liken Freud's ideas to an iceberg in their respective works, The Subconscious and Religion in 1913 and The Nature of Mentality in 1919. And for the last question, Carl Binger and Ernest Jones were among the first to attribute the metaphor directly to Freud. So, you learn. Lastly, Freud didn't stop with the three levels of the mind. He later introduced the psychodynamics of personality, namely the id, the ego, and the superego. If you want to learn more about this, check out my next video titled Psychodynamics of Personality, id, ego, and superego. So that's it. Cheers!